Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. If you guys could subscribe here, that'd mean a lot to me. And to the WQAM YouTube page to watch Tobin and Leroy every single weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And thank you to everybody for checking out Game Day Uncensored. That has been off to a tremendous start. Our pregame show, myself, Alejandro Solana, and Omar Kelly. We love breaking it down for you before every one of these Dolphins games. Looking forward to a regular season with the boys and getting after that. Couple pieces of business to get to. I did not get to a whole Dolphins breakdown after the preseason game yesterday. Did 6 straight hours of radio yesterday, everybody. I did the pregame show. Then I had to go do my MMA show. Drive back from Miami because I was at the studio. None of it was at the home base yesterday. So I did watch the game. I had it on there while the MMA show was going on. I honestly didn't think it was the most inspiring preseason game by any means, kind of a ho-hum performance by the first team. Savon Ahmed continues to ball out. Skylar Thompson kind of pooped the bed. Javon Holland doing Javon Holland awesome stuff with a big clutch play. But I just thought it was kind of a performance all around. And I thought that, it wasn't really that much extra from the previous week where I thought the Dolphins showed just an excellent run game, sustained drives, did a great job with all that. I do think that there's a tough battle at running back, man. I don't know how Ahmed, even with him getting banged up in yesterday's game, I don't know how you could look at what happened in that performance and be like, man, how did he not earn a job? Listen, if he didn't earn a job with the Dolphins, he earned a job somewhere. The Jonathan Taylor thing, of course, still looms, and the negotiations going on there. The other piece of news was the scary thing that happened with David Davis at the end of that game, cut the game short. He took that brutal hit. They had to stretcher him off the field. It has to be scary for the Dolphins. You think back to what happened to Tua back on Thursday Night Football, second year in a row that they have to watch one of their teammates get taken off, even though this guy, what his chances were making the team. I mean, probably not great, but it's scary nonetheless. And it's honestly scary. You think about these preseason games and these guys are out there trying to earn jobs or get a look or get their last taste of football, whatever, and then this happens to him. Now, the news was that he was released from the hospital this morning. He is going to travel home to Miami with team personnel. So that's really, really good news because a lot of the team looked really shook while that was happening yesterday. So hoping for a quick recovery for David Davis and everything going to be okay there. And I thought that was the right decision. It was honestly, I was listening to the broadcast on the way home and had Jimmy and Joe on, and I was just like, damn, what's going on? Like, what the hell is happening? They were talking about the whole personnel, and then going back and watching the whole thing happen on the internet. Really, really scary. And hopefully David's going to be okay, and everything that went on for him there. That was not a fun watch for anybody involved. Not a fun watch at all. But yeah, it was the preseason comes to an end. We'll see what these roster goes. McDaniel's going to speak today at like 3:00 ish, and wonder where things will lie with that. The big piece of news today, as far as the team was concerned, this broke this morning. Zach Sieler it on up. Zach Sieler gets a new deal. And I think a little bit of a surprise for everybody because the tremendous Dolphins defensive tackle, monster, Zach Sieler. I mean, just a monster. Probably one of the most overlooked players on the team, but is just a behemoth. Obviously is a force, cause disruption, just good. I just think that the way you just put Zach Sieler is like, would you say he's one of the best players on the team? Would you say he's one of the top 5 players on the team? Yeah, maybe not, but the dude's he's just a beast. He's so good, and he just complements everything so well. So Zach Sieler, according to reports, agreed to a new 3-year deal that could be worth up to $38 million and includes $20 million guaranteed, including a significant signing bonus. That's from the Miami Herald. Adam Schefter was the one who broke this story. The Dolphins get that news, and I think there's a couple of things that come to mind because Zach Sieler is really, really good, but I don't think anybody was looking at it. If you would have guessed which deal was going to get done first, in this preseason, if anybody on the defensive line's deal was going to get done, it was going to be Christian Wilkins. And instead, it's Zach Sieler who gets the new contract first. Few things are interesting here. One, I mean, he is represented by Drew Rosenhaus, Chris Greer. They seem to be like this. You know, Drew Rosenhaus has a lot of guys on the Dolphins, and he just seems to have a really, last year, what did he have? I think he had 4 guys who Chris Greer signed up. So the Rosenhaus connection to Miami has always been very, very strong. So the idea that they get to this and it gets done makes a lot of sense from that standpoint. But it does, I think everybody's antennae go up, and you're like, well, what does this mean for Christian Wilkins? Does this mean that he is not going to happen? Can he still happen? Are they super far apart? Because, look, he did his hold-in. He did his protest, if you will, that he's not happy with his contract. But now training camp's over, and it's not really going to do anybody any good to not see him out at practice doing anything. Media is not going to see it. It's not really going to be a story because they can't watch practice anymore. He doesn't want to get fined for skipping practice. So I don't know. I don't know where this goes with Christian and what it means for his deal. The one thing I hope doesn't happen for the Dolphin fan is, I hope people don't start turning on Christian Wilkins because he has a certain value of himself. Because he's not holding out. He did not hold out. He did not miss camp. Everybody is under the impression that once football starts, he's going to play balls to the wall and ball out and probably play with a big chip on his shoulder, because if he wants that big contract and he wants to get it, he knows that the sacks are supposedly the big thing that's distinguishing what gets a Quinnen Williams paid and what leaves him on the outside looking in right now. But there's so many things of business that have been bantied about this offseason between him, the pursuit of running backs. And I do think that with the Zach Sieler deal, I do think it's an interesting thing because there's been a little bit of a level to the Dolphins not taking care of their own guys and always taking care of guys who they bring in. And so you take care of Zach Sieler, who's definitely one of the most underpaid guys. I mean, Christian Wilkins is still going to make $10 million something this year, no matter what. Zach Sieler was making $2 million, which, hey, great living for a lot of us. But for a defensive lineman in one of the most dangerous positions and mauling positions out there, woefully underpaid. And now he is taken care of. Man, he could buy a sweet-ass RV. I know he's not living in the RV anymore, but you got to think that Zach Sieler is going to go to Bass Pro Shop and clean that puppy out. Buy himself a real sweet-ass bow, a nice boat, fishing reels, whatever he's got going on. He's an outdoorsman. Zach Sieler's going to live it up, dude. I mean, you got to think that he is going to be sans pants, sans camo pants, partying it up. Good for Zach Sieler. And maybe gets himself an upgrade with the RV. But I am going to very much enjoy doing my stupid Sieler it on up for at least the next couple of years here in Miami. And I was happy to see him get his deal. I really was. You know, it's one of those things where it's yeah, if the Jonathan Taylor deal would have gone through and that would have deterred the Christian Wilkins deal at all, and I'm not saying one thing would have affected the other, I would have been cool. I'm very excited to have Jonathan Taylor, but they're still not taking care of their players or not paying up on any of their players. I could see that being an uneasy thing in the locker room a little bit. Now a guy like Christian Wilkins doesn't get paid, but Zach Sieler does. Does that ease any of the tension? I don't know. And I don't think there's going to be any ill will from Christian because, that's like his QB bash brother. He goes in there and they just wreck shop. That's what those guys do. But it is going to be interesting to see what is the carryover on this because as Ian Rappaport put it, he made it sound like this was kind of a pivot from the Dolphins because he put, after months of negotiating with defensive lineman Christian Wilkins, the two sides were unable to come to terms. Miami eventually turned its attention to Sieler, who gets the extension. So the way that Rappaport puts it makes it sound like no deal's happening. I mean, when you say that they're unable to come to terms and the Dolphins do a pivot to go pay somebody else, the next guy on the totem pole who really deserves the contract. It doesn't sound like anything is on the horizon with Christian. And look, the Dolphins have other levies to this. They could franchise him next year. And then Christian Wilkins is guaranteed over the next 2 years would get something like $32 million. So that's 16 a year. So where does it come to what they hope will be the agreement on that as far as how much more does he want of that guaranteed a year? How many more years does it go into? These are all interesting questions that the Dolphins do have to answer. But I will say, we can quibble over the sacks and all that stuff. That dude was a monster and a motor last year for the Dolphins. He was just such a terror for everybody. Nobody likes playing the Dolphins because of Christian Wilkins. He is an absolute behemoth. But you don't know. This is the one thing. We don't know what he's asking for. We don't know what that gap is. And I'm interested because now will usually come the time where the leaks will go to the media and say, well, this is what Christian's asking for. This is where he's at. It hasn't happened yet. Everybody's been very kumbaya. Everybody's been very PC with it. And it's also going to be interesting what's the next time that Christian talks, because he had his one press conference after the scrimmage. He hasn't spoken since. And I'd imagine probably doesn't have to talk until maybe the week before the actual game, before people will be like, ooh, Christian Wilkins hasn't spoken, because locker rooms will open. You know, guys can try and get him around the locker and see where things are at. He could say yes. He could say no. He could defer on not wanting to talk about the contract. But the one thing I'd say is, like, look, he didn't hold out. He did his hold in. He did say he doesn't want it to be a distraction for his team. He's made his point, thinks he earned his contract. Will any of that change now that I don't think so. I honestly think probably he's going to go about this season as like, okay, you guys didn't believe in me. Let's see how much money I can rack this puppy up to going into the offseason. That's going to be an interesting thing to check out. And then on top of it, the fact that they may pursue a star running back too and give him a big contract. So happy for Zach Sieler. Really, really enjoy watching that dude play. Really, really happy that he got his deal. Hope this doesn't mean that there's going to be some fallout from Christian Wilkins, but it kind of sounds like this was all right, we're done negotiating with Christian. Let's go to Sieler. It does sound like that, but we don't know for sure. And then, of course, we got Jonathan Taylor watch, which has a couple more days to go. We'll see if there's any updates with that.